Hi there, this is Sandra with the Mortgage Center. Thanks so much for joining us today. And you know that we have these regular monthly conversations with experts that we often tap into. And we're lucky today to have Cheryl Stelzer with Stelzer Law, Cheryl Stelzer Law. And she's actually we're going to be talking a little bit about going through separations and or divorces. And Cheryl, I know I've had several calls. It's I don't want to blame it on the pandemic, but people are spending more and more time together within families and relationships, and maybe they find that they don't have as much in common with their spouse or their partner as they once did. And so I'm finding that I'm getting more calls about how we can move forward. Like we may have a matrimonial home. We want to sort of move forward with our own relationships. And that's often a conversation I have, but it's like a chicken and an egg thing. I'm trying to kind of say, well, you got to talk to a lawyer first. So can you maybe comment on that? Like what comes first?
Well, definitely being together alone during pandemic is not helpful. But definitely the issue becomes you have to deal with whether you're going to move forward in an amicable way. Are you going to cooperate together on the terms that have to be pulled together in order to effect a good separation? Clients need to come to me and help me understand, is it a combative situation? What are the areas of contest? And often the issues of finance and house and money are very central to all of the issues of separating.
Right, because the matrimonial home I find is often most people's largest asset, and that's kind of the asset that's physically tying them together. And so I know, like, I'll have a customer come in and say, what do I do? Like, I'd like to try to keep the house, or I'm not sure if I can keep the home. And we sort of work out a preliminary scenario for them to see if they could possibly qualify. And then I send them over to the lawyer. And where do you take it from there?
Well, with every client, I have a consultation, and that's even before they retain me or if they retain me. And during that process, I go through every issue, including the concept of the parenting of the children, the support issues that flow from that, the character of the marriage that may also implicate spousal support, um, and then discuss the concept of equalization of property between the two parties on breakdown. Well, all of these things are tied together. And in order to come out with an outcome that will be logical for them, they have to deal with them as a package. It usually requires involving a financial person, and very often I'm sending them to a financial advisor to deal with those aspects of the process. But without all of the issues being addressed, um, we can't come to any conclusion for terms for settlement.
Right. And you bring up child and spousal support. Like from the financing point of view, the mortgage piece, like deciding if they're going to have to sell the house, how they're going to divide that asset, and then who can or if they want to stay at the matrimonial home. If someone is paying child or spousal support, that would be viewed as a liability. Or if somebody is receiving that money, that could be considered income. So it really is important to kind of work those details out. And I find those are sort of some of the more stickier details. And I wanted to kind of go back to your original idea about, like, is this going to be confrontational or is it going to be more amicable? But I kind of like your approach. So you're more wanting to kind of resolve issues in a collaborative way.
Yes, actually, in 25 years of practicing in Guelph, I've had 2 trials. And I basically gave up on trials many years ago from the concept of solving issues can be done very easily or well when you have the help of 2 participating counsel working with parties that are cooperating. And clients themselves are getting very competent at coming up with settlement terms that work. And I'm finding more and more nowadays, we have the younger people, the younger generation, where sharing parenting of children is an automatic. It's not like it used to be. And because of that, they sometimes come to me pretty well equipped. And as I indicated during that initial consult, I leave them at the end of it fully prepped with numbers, support numbers as best I'm able, and even potential equalization numbers, which they can take to their financial person to see whether they're even capable of buying out a home.
Right. So, but and Cheryl, I often get some pushback from clients, because they'll come to me and they've already sort of, they just kind of want to move on, right? They've gone online, downloaded a separation agreement, they've worked it all out, and I'm kind of the belief that they really need some legal advice around that, and I do get pushback around going to see a lawyer, because so maybe talk to me a little bit, and talk to us a little bit about some of the risks associated with with that.
There are a lot of risks actually, and that's why when I talk to clients about why I will not add my independent legal advice to a contract drawn by the parties, is because it's very rare for those contracts to reflect all of the proper issues or deal with all of the proper issues. And because of that, my goal is to make sure all of the issues are addressed, even if you're giving something up, right? I mean, parties have every right as adults to contract out of the law. They don't have to follow the law. They can follow the law where it's relevant, which is definitely taking care of their child support issues. And on other issues, mostly in the property settlement regime, they are often give and take. And I encourage that, but as far as their own agreements, they're often they are often missing a lot of the important issues. And it takes more for a lawyer to revamp a self-made agreement than it does for us to design a proper agreement.
There you go. Yeah, and I think that might be part of what I'm hearing from some clients is they don't want this to sort of be a long, drawn-out process. And so, how do you help clients kind of get to that resolution in a organized and sort of within a reasonable timeline?
Right. The very difficult side of that is it's not always within the control of one lawyer. And so sometimes if there are two lawyers on the transaction, it's always possible that one lawyer has a different perspective. And that can be difficult for the clients because, I have heard and seen in my own files where clients don't always believe the same as what their lawyer does. And Cheryl can sometimes step out of the boundaries of her norm. And I have sometimes said, well, I'll just send a copy of the letter to my own client. And if you happen to send it to your ex-spouse, that's fine. It will explain our position. And that can get me into trouble sometimes. So I'm absolutely in agreement that we try to reach conciliatory outcomes on all the issues. And I encourage my clients in every way to work in that direction.
Do people, now you bring an interesting point up, like do people always need two lawyers when there's like a marital or like a breakdown in a relationship?
They're well advised to have a lawyer on the side, someone that they've consulted initially, just as I often consult with people. And it doesn't mean that there has to be two lawyers involved. If the parties are resolution directed on their terms, then it's possible for me to design a contract that meets all the verbiage of the outcome they want to achieve. But then I always recommend that opposing party or the other spouse take that agreement to a lawyer of their choice and have it reviewed. And that's where they get their advice on if something's missing, if they don't feel that they've been well taken care of on the agreement drafting. And that's a really important aspect of it.
Hmm. What do you find? That's very interesting. I didn't know that. What do you find, Cheryl, is kind of one of the biggest missteps that clients make in coming to a resolution, just in their a resolution?
Hmm. Well, they sometimes miss dealing with issues. They don't always understand that pensions are property. So pensions have a very big value sometimes. And if they're proceeding as though they're just saying, I don't want your pension, I always tell them you have to know what that pension's worth to give it up because they can be very substantial assets, right? Simple things like that. When they're talking, I don't want his pension is the verbiage you get. But in truth, do they know it's worth 380,000, right? And so from
Right.
that perspective, there are issues that they treat very nominally. And I want to ensure that they understand what they're giving up when they do accept a term for settlement.
Right, because they're just, I kind of going back to the real estate piece of that. Like they see the physical real estate, right? But they don't understand the value of other things that could possibly impact
Yeah.
them in the decision making process, right? One of the things that I'm also finding is that um, like I've had people put offers on houses
Mhm.
without having a separation agreement and then the other spouse holding them for ransom, right? To get, yeah. So I'm sort of, can you maybe comment on that? Because again, I think people are motivated to move forward and they think that putting an offer on a house is going to resolve things quickly because there's a timeline there, right?
You have to
And that
be
could be a dangerous thing. Yeah.
you have to be very strategic. And the very first thing I do is warn my clients, listen, it would benefit you so much to rent a property for 1 year and know what your life is about, know where you want to be, and all of your surroundings, and then you buy. So buying a house right away definitely makes one party vulnerable. And I
Right.
warn against it with all my clients. And they
Yeah.
don't always listen, in which case we're under pressure. And if we're under pressure, we tend to have to give up a little more. It's still possible to achieve under a press situation, but it's not a good thing to be in.
Right. One of the things I should mention to our listeners tonight is that banks are very stringent right now with their lending guidelines. And at the Mortgage Center, I mean, we're familiar with working with banks because we work with companies like institutions like TD and Scotia.
Mm.
But I also wanted to let our viewers know that if they've been declined by their bank, there are always, and they want to stay in the matrimonial home because of the children or other things, there are probably some good financial alternatives that we can put together for them. And again, staying in the matrimonial home might be important for one of the parties involved, and but they may have been declined by their own financial institution. So I think working with a good mortgage broker who has those options is something sometimes I think people overlook because they're just like, oh, I'm just going to go to my bank. And then the bank says no, and then that kind of sets them down a certain path. But
Mm.
it's always really important for clients, I think, to get a second opinion on that.
Oh, I would definitely agree. And I'm very into numbers in business myself. And so I constantly am referring my clients to get an advanced position on would they pre-qualify to or get pre-approved for financing if they wanted to buy out someone's interest. Because a lot of people do want to buy out, but I'm very strong on making them understand the financial implications of their wish and making sure that that wish is achievable. And that's
Mm,
the
uh,
problem. Yeah.
yeah, I love that attitude. So if someone wanted to connect with you, Cheryl, where can they find you?
Well, I'm one of the 3 best divorce lawyers in town, so you can go online and my name pops up all over. Mostly good, not all, but so
That's
I'm
awesome.
available online. I've been on the same location in Woolwich Street area for 25 years. So I've been in this one little triangle location near Mont Street and London Road area. And my signage is much bigger than it used to be, so you can't miss me now.
That's awesome. I know you're just down the street from our office on Norfolk Street, which turns into Woolwich Street.
Right.
I wanted to wrap up the conversation just to thank you, Cheryl. For more information and how to connect with the Mortgage Center, you can just go to my website at skipthebank.ca, and I've got a really great, if you can just click on the link and schedule an appointment with me, it automatically opens up my schedule for the week, and you can book yourself in. And if you'd like to connect with Cheryl, you know where she's at, but you can also just contact me and I can put you in touch with her. So thanks so much, Cheryl. Great talking to you and excellent information.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot, Sandra. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.